The next speaker speaks to specifically, well, you can see, conquering life's challenges posed by vision loss. Julianne Lieberman has been here before, and she speaks again. I'll let her and her good companion come up here and answer, well, talk a bit and answer questions, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And do you have the PowerPoint loaded?
The PowerPoint is loaded. It says conquering life's challenges posed by vision loss.
And could someone push the slides for me since there's no
I think
screen?
somebody can.
Thank you.
Can you get up? You want to come up? Can you get up that way?
Sure, I got it. Okay.
Tell me when you want to push the...
And I'll just give you the next one, okay? Because I pretty much have it memorized.
But I have to decide which ones...
You can follow my lead. How's that? It's kind of like, you know, the.
We're up with the one that says vision loss due to glaucoma presents.
All right. Good morning, everybody. And I had the pleasure of joining you again for the second year. For those of you anybody in this room heard me last year by sound of applause? Anybody last? Ah, okay. I'm still married. For those that didn't have the pleasure of seeing us last year, my husband was the volunteer that I dragged out of the audience and subjected him to a treatment as if I was his rehab teacher. He simulated under blindfold an activity. This year I'm going to probably spare him that, unless he really wants to. This year I'm taking a little bit of different stance on my topic today. I'm trying to follow up on the open discussion that Dr. Edmond so eloquently described on what to do with remaining vision you have with advanced glaucoma. He spoke so well about the optics and what they can do with good refraction and good examination with a low vision evaluation. And it's just amazing what vision rehabilitation can do and the training. His example of bringing someone from 2400 to 2200 to 2060 with dedication and training with rehabilitation just amazes me that can be accomplished. And it is, but it takes, as he said, like someone learning to play the piano, a lot of dedication and time, but it's well worth it. What my focus is in the work that I do is beyond the optics, beyond the vision rehabilitation, I address more of the activities of daily living that's beyond your vision. I use what you have remaining vision, but not in the same sense as vision rehabilitation does. I use it from an activity of daily living, incorporating your other senses. And so what I'm talking about today is what does glaucoma do affect your vision primarily, functionally, in your daily life? Well, two main areas from the study that I've been involved in. I've been now in graduate school, getting close to the end. I'll be finished by December of next year in a master's in low vision rehabilitation therapy at Salus University. And in the course of study, I've covered all kinds of areas as far as rehabilitation for low vision. And in our discussion on glaucoma, we pretty much decided that two of the major issues that individuals with advanced glaucoma have are with field restrictions and also with glare sensitivity. Some of the glare sensitivity, as described by Dr. Schwartz, are results of the actual changes that occur in the eye, but also some of it are results of some of the medications that are needed to treat the glaucoma condition. So, you know, it's just a course of the event. So what can we do to make those situations a little bit better, and how can we live with those accommodations in one's life? So what would a field restriction do? You want to pass it on? You're moving along. Well, you got it. We're like a tag team here. What would a field restriction do? Well, primarily the first thing that comes to mind is some of the things that would be orientation and mobility. What orientation and mobility means is where you are in the world, where you are in space, and how do you move about within it. So that your first challenge is. If your field of view is restricted, you may be missing parts of your view. As Dr. Edmonds described, a lot of the patients that he looks on that chart when they're examined might miss part of that pyramid. Well, maybe that part of that pyramid, when you're talking about moving around in your space, might be the steps, or it might be the corner of the doorway, or it might be a person walking by, or it could be the overhang that you miss, the sign that's hanging in your way. So these are the things that you might be encountering as you pass through your environment. Orientation is knowing where you are. If you can't see your surrounding, getting where your position is in space, and then how to move around in that environment. Suggestions for people that have restrictive view in orientation mobility is, my first suggestion is, strong recommendation, is to get evaluated by an orientation and mobility specialist, a certified orientation and mobility specialist. They're the persons that prescribe and recommend any kind of mobility device, like a white cane. And if anyone needs to know, I've got one with me. Handy dandy folding one. They come in a couple different kinds of styles. This happens to be a folding one. And they prescribe you for the size, how tall you are, how fast you walk, and the type of travel that you do. So an orientation mobility specialist makes that determination based on your particular needs. And also, they also then, ultimately, as you can tell, I also have another mobility device right here. Are you taking a bow, Johan? There you go. He's taking a bow. This is Johan. Johan comes from Guiding Eyes for the Blind out of Yorktown Heights, New York. And every person that applies for a guide dog must be trained in using a white cane first. So in order to go through that process of determining whether you're available, possibly used for a guide dog, you have to have white cane training first. So your first step is to, if you are considering this and you are having a challenge that regard, is to get a good evaluation from an orientation and mobility specialist. But before you even go on that step, when you start first considering things I can teach you as a low vision therapist is, sit down please, Johan, down. Down, thank you. I can give you some tips today that can help make you a little safer in your travel, and that is protective technique. And, we all start, those of us that have lost our vision gradually started doing this on our own without realizing we've been doing these strategies, and then I learned to do it the right way. That's what I like to say, sometimes by the hard way of finding this out. But what the goal is with protective technique is to keep the body parts safe as you travel within space. So the first thing I want to do is keep my head safe. We talked about that, going through overhangs or, my kitchen, by the way, I live with 3 men, my husband and my 2 sons. They often forget to close the cabinet's doors. Not fun for me. So sometimes walking through, especially when the lights are out in my kitchen, it's a hazard. So it's not unusual for me to walk through my kitchen with the upper body technique. Upper body technique is to raise my arm up, to keep it across the front of my face, and about 8 to 12 inches away, with the fleshy part of my arm out in front of me. So that if I do encounter something, I'm going to encounter it with that part of my arm first. So it's not going to smack me in the nose or smack me in the forehead, or worse yet, smack me in the corner of my eye. So that's the first protective technique. You can walk around pretty safely like that without, causing any injury. The other protective technique is a lower body technique. On the opposite way, you want the arm facing out. So you want your wrist facing out, and then you want it across the front of your body at hip height and slightly out. So when you're walking across, you're not getting your belly button or below injured, shall we say. So you want to keep that area safe as you move through the environment. So already today you've got the first steps in moving around safely in your environment if you have a mobility challenge. That is not a professional orientation and mobility skills. This is just the first step. So you've already gained some skills already today. Other strategies for moving around with low vision safely when you have a restricted view is something called tracing. Tracing, if you're walking down the street, for example, and you want to keep where you're on the sidewalk or keep on the road, is you identify, say, the side of a building or the curb line, and just trace it. Just follow it with, keep that focus on that line and trace it all the way down the road as you travel down. Tracking is another way, is that you find an object, a fixed object, and just track it as you follow that all the way down. Track it. In other words, it's a moving object and you're tracking it, following across. Like, say, a car moving down the street. I'm tracking that car, following that car down the street. What was the other one? Trailing. Trailing is the third one. Trailing is what you do is if you were walking along, say, inside a building. I guess the best way to describe it, if I'll move around, give Johan a second, darling, is trailing technique is that you want to use, again, the side of your hand, slightly ahead of you, and move it along so you're touching the wall with your hands cupped, so that you're not bumping your fingers and jabbing your fingers, but keeping that contact ahead of you. And know that that wall is there, so that you're keeping in contact with the wall as you move down a hallway, for example. So that's the 3 T's. We heard about the 3 F's, now we've got the 3 T's: tracking, trailing, and tracing, as far as orientation and mobility techniques. So there are 3 simple ways that you can move safely in your environment already if you have a restricted view. But this is not to replace orientation mobility, but it's a first step. The other suggestion that I always give people that come in to visit me is to learn how to accept, or in the case of their significant other or friend, how to give human guide technique. That's my goal. If everyone can learn human guide technique, the world would be a safer place for all of us with vision impairment. Resist the temptation of grabbing a blind person and dragging them down the street. My poor husband, I use him as a demo on this all the time, and he goes, "She's rough on me." I pulled him down hallways several times. It is very unsettling to be taken by arm and someone's grabbing you. It is better if you offer someone who has a vision impairment, offer your arm to them so that they can hold on to you. So I can prepare you with human guide technique and how to accept human guide technique, and so that you can travel safely. Would you mind if I borrowed you for a minute?
Surely. I also have a different one of the reduction of field one.
Okay, good. Well, then we're in great shape together, right? We've got a good eyes together. Okay, can you move out of the way? All right.
Yep.
And I'm gonna be the human guide here. Okay? So you can hold on to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. By holding on to me, as you can see, we can move straight around. Not moving in front of the camera. That's nice. And then there we go. And I'm going to move him right back to the podium.
To here. Back
to the podium. And that was pretty graceful. We kind of look like we were dancing. A little inconspicuous, don't you think?
I think it is.
You were not a bad pair. That's just to give you an idea that it's rather discreet, rather comfortable. And had we had tables and chairs up here, I could have easily got him to a table and sat him down efficiently. My husband and I just came back from Florence, Italy to visit. We were visiting our daughter. An orientation and mobility nightmare. The roads are very narrow, sidewalks are very narrow. My husband earned his rewards by getting me home safely in that environment. Johan did not travel with us on that trip. So John got to be my human guide, as well as using my white cane. It is a challenge in that environment again, very crowded situations. But we did it. And we survived. And so that's the point I'm trying to make to you, that you can provide this assistance for others as well as travel safely on your own. Okay, so that's getting through those environments. The next thing I wanted to talk about is what happens. Another common thing that we do is we drop things. And what happens when you have a field of view restriction and you drop things and you can't find them? Well, I'm going to go a quick demonstration on that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take something easy to find, so she says. All right? I'm going to take my keys. Everyone's dropped their keys once in a while, right? Okay, uh-oh, where are my keys? Now, first thing I'm going to do is I can tell you that I heard them fall. Good thing is this is a wood floor, so this is a little easier to find. What I remember I heard it fall, it sounded like it fell over there. So my first job is to turn in that direction. Okay? So then I'm going to then move down and go down to my knees, because I don't bend over well, and then reach out. I have my eyes closed. I do small circles down my keys. Okay? Now, I could have thrown him further away. I'm lazy today. And done the same, repeat the same pattern. I'm going to get back up again. I'm going to try something harder. The hardest one I did was in my class. They had a carpet floor with air conditioning going, and she dropped a dime on the floor. I could never get that dime. I could not find that dime for the life of me. But it's a good thing that we have other resources there. My husband picked up a little candy for me out in the vending area here, out in the exhibit area. Let's see if I can find that one. Oh, great. It bounced. That's even funnier. Although I do notice I throw it to the left, don't I? So let's see if I can find this one. Johan, no cheating. He's like, food. I think I want it. Okay, so that bounced a little bit. So I know that I heard it hit here and then bounced over there. So let's see if I can find it this time. And again, it's a little smaller. So I'm going to turn in this direction. So, all right. And just by finding small circles and using my fingertips, I found it. What if it was your medications that you were talking about? Everyone in this room has dropped pills. I know it. Everyone has. Okay? My suggestion with medications is use a tray. I take them over my sink and I close the drain, because I know you've dropped them down the drain too. I've done that. But if you don't want them to get damp, because sometimes drains are damp, I recommend putting them, using a tray or a big plate, a platter, and take your pills over that. That way, if you do drop them, it's in a confined space, so you can find them. That's the simplest solution I've given for people for taking your medication. So limit the area where you can drop it first, and then you can do the same kind of search techniques in a smaller area. So it's a lot easier. So there are my recommendations for finding things. What else am I missing here?
Okay, we'll go to the next
Which
one.
is reading?
Reading.
Okay. Dr. Edmonds talked about, again, doing the vision rehabilitation and so that you can achieve better reading results. Magnification lenses. One of the things that I have observed with people that start using, prescription reading lenses, in fact, I just had someone in my office yesterday that had, I have to laugh because he came in and he said, these reading glasses don't work. And I said, oh, okay, well, let's try and do a little bit of an assessment first to see what your reading is without your glasses. So we tried that first. And I said, okay, now put your glasses on. Let's try it again. And I said, but I want you to pull the reading material closer to you while you're reading it. And then tell me when you can see it. So as he's reading, he pulls it closer. He goes, oh, now I can see it. I go, that's what you need to do. Sometimes it's just as simple of realizing there's a different focal distance when you're using magnification lenses, and that's what he needed to hear. He needed to be reinforced. So sometimes even with all the training and all the times that good optics can bring in, they need a little reinforcement as, okay, sometimes you might have to bring it in. It's not like reading the newspaper out here anymore. You may have to bring it into closer to 6 inches away from your nose to see it again. So sometimes, they have to make that kind of accommodation. But it is very possible, again, to read with glaucoma using either magnifications or the vision rehabilitation techniques. If you want to read visually, I encourage using your eyes to read visually whenever it's comfortable, feasible, and possible. If it is not, if it gets to a point where it's fatiguing, and there are alternatives out there, I am a big believer in audiobooks. I read about 50 books a year on audiobooks for pleasure. And there are great resources out there for audiobooks now, both commercially as well as through certain membership services. The National Library Service for the Blind has a great digital book service now. You don't have to deal with the cassette tapes anymore. They're not going to break in your machine anymore. The digital service is much easier to use. You can also download books from their website onto the digital players now. So it's come a lot more convenient rather than waiting for the things to show up in the mail. So that's a real advance. Recording for the Blind and Dyslexic is a paid membership program, but they also, too, have another resource. The commercial booksellers, like Audible.com, they laughed recently when I called up for customer service reason some while back. They said, "Oh, my, you are a member a long time." I said, "Yeah, I am. How about that? I didn't realize how long it was till they pulled up my record." You can take advantage of those type of services. I read all the bestsellers that come out, just like everybody else does. If it's been recorded, I read it because I have access to all this material. So it hasn't stopped me from reading. I just read material for pleasure primarily by taking in by audio at this point in time. So I save my vision for reading vision for things I have to do when I have no other alternative than to do it by visually. So there are some great alternatives out there. Assistive technology, that is your computer can talk to you. It can make the screen very large print. There's specific software out there that can make a PC do this. It can make the print very large. It can also make the computer talk to you. Macintosh platform has it built into them using VoiceOver or Zoom. You can learn more about that by visiting American Foundation for the Blind's website. You can also give me a call. I can give you demonstrations on both the operating systems. I've been using both of them. And again, I'm also into now learning all about the new Mac stuff. So that's all another whole area, other workshop I can do, all kinds of topic on that. So there are other alternatives out there. Just because you might be losing your vision, there's all different ways that you can accommodate for this in your daily life. What else were you allowed?
Okay, I'll see one more. Just tells us those places you just told about.
Okay, when you move that out.
And assistive we have again.
Okay.
And
the glare.
Where you can contact.
Yeah, and the other thing that we wanted to talk about basically was about the glare. A couple of people mentioned to me that when I was just out there in the exhibit area about glare. Two things about working in the environment. I know that they've already addressed this a couple times with tints. Dr. Edmonds did, Dr. Schwartz did, and I think earlier today that was mentioned about tints for glare. Other things as far as working in that environment. I mean, I think sunglasses are great and tints are great. Obviously, I wear orange or light amber tints myself. What I also recommend in your environment, these things are common sense, but we forget about it. In your workplace, don't put the computer in front of the window. That makes, to me it makes common sense, but you'd be surprised how many times I walk into people's homes and their computer's right in front of the window. Well, no wonder their eyes they're having glare problem. Or the computer or the window is shining right on the computer screen because the window's right behind their chair. Well, sometimes you might have to make that change so the glare is not on the screen. For television viewing, I often recommend turn the lights down because sometimes the overhead lights can cause a glare producing effect on the TV screen. So that might be, a little bit of a common sense kind of change that's in your life. Try to find activities where the time of the day might make a difference for you, where it's not glare producing. Where the sunlight, this time of year is a little bit different. In the real bright time in the morning, it's harder for me to take him out for a walk because it's uncomfortable for me when the light is at a certain level. So there are things, accommodations that I do in my workplace and my work timing that makes it easier for me to accommodate for the glare as well. Okay.
And the last one is it's cool to wear shades, work away from window.
Yep.
And then how to do the home.
Okay, and as far as house lighting, try to keep it consistent if you can. I try to keep at least a light on in each one of my rooms if possible, because it's easier for me to travel in one room if it has some light in it rather than going from one dark room to a real bright room. It's easier for me to make that accommodation, and I think that's true for most people that have glare sensitivities. Going from a real bright situation to a real dark situation is a little harder on us to accommodate to that change, and also it can cause, again, discomfort. So try and keep maybe a small light on in each room. Also keep your stairs well lit. You want to make sure that you can be able to find the top of the stairs so that, obviously you don't prevent falls.
And thank you for your attention.
And thank you for your attention. Any questions?